Omnivore's Dilemma, page 10. The Omnivore's Dilemma. Now I have a big problem. I went from never thinking about where my food comes from to thinking about it all the time. I started worrying about what I should and shouldn't eat. Just because food was in the supermarket, did that mean it was good to eat? The more I studied and read about food, the more I realized I was suffering from the omnivore's dilemma. This is a big name for a very old problem. Human beings are omnivores. That means we eat plants, meat, mushrooms, just about anything. But because we are omnivores, we have very little built-in instinct that tells us which foods are good for us and which aren't. That's the dilemma. We can eat anything, but how do we know what to eat? The omnivore's dilemma has been around for a long time, but today we have a very modern form of this dilemma. We have 1,000 choices of foods in our supermarket, but we don't really know where our food comes from. As I discovered, just finding out about how our potatoes are grown might scare you off French fries for the rest of your life. In the past, people knew about food because they grew it or hunted it themselves. They learned about food from their parents and grandparents. They cooked and ate the same foods people in their part of the world have always eaten. Modern Americans don't have strong food traditions. Instead, we have dozens of difficult experts who give us lots of different advice about what to eat and what not to eat. It's one thing to be crazy about food because you like to eat. But I found I was going crazy from worrying about food. So I set out to try to solve the modern omnivore's dilemma. I decided to become a food detective to find out where our food comes from and what exactly it is we are eating. My detective work became the book you now hold in your hands. 4 Meals. As a food detective, I had to go back to the beginning to the farms and fields where our food is grown. Then I followed it each step of the way and watched what happened to our food on its way to our stomachs. Each step was another link in a chain, a food chain. A food chain is a system for growing, making, and delivering food. In this book, I followed 4 different food chains. Each one has its own sections. They are industrial. This is where most of our food comes from today. This chain starts in a giant field, usually in the Midwest, where a single crop is grown, corn or soybean perhaps, and ends up in a supermarket or fast food restaurant. Industrial organic. This food is grown on large industrial farms, but with only natural fertilizers and natural bug and weed control. It is sold in the same way as industrial food. Local sustainable. This is food grown on a small farm that raises lots of different kinds of crops and animals. The food from the farm doesn't need to be processed, and it travels a short distance to a farmer's market, for example, before it reaches your table. Hunter-gatherer. This is the oldest type of food chain there is. It hardly a chain at all, really. It is made up of simply of you hunting, growing, or finding your food. All of these food chains end the same way, with a meal. And so I thought it important to end each section of the book with a meal. Whether it was a fast food hamburger eaten in a speeding car or a meal I made myself from start to finish.